right, debater Grunt Syndrome will be trying to give a clear, concise, and okay, wait a minute. The recording. Wait, the recording start? Hold on. OBS is lagging. Okay, yeah, cheers. First. Okay, yeah. Hi guys, Shane here, back on another video, and today we'll be going over a very divisive syndrome that has been going around the community recently, called Grunt Syndrome. And today, obviously, we have my favorite child, Yani, here to actually analyze what Grunt Syndrome is. Introduce yourself, Yani.
Yani is the name. Discord debate analysis videos is my game. So,
yeah, man.
Me and Shinra are here back with another banger, talking to you about Grunt Syndrome. Shinra, do you want to give us a brief overview of what Grunt Syndrome is?
So Grunt Syndrome is when a debater sees other debaters being hyped up by loads of people. Say, for example, Arcana, say, for example, Yugi, say, for example, Infinity. They see them get hyped up by all of these other people, but without actually watching them debate, even if like the person is really good or not, without actually watching them debate, they instinctively have this desire to conform with the masses and put this person really high, right? And because they feel as if they don't do it, that they will become social outcasts, right? And this also links to people who are syndicate grunts, where they themselves, instead of actually having their own personal pride, in the sense that they think they're good, they think they're good by extension of knowing somebody who's good. So look at somebody like Careless, right? The reason why Careless has an ego debate-wise is because he quote-unquote hangs out with good debaters in the form of like Infinity. So that would explain it. But you could go ahead, Yanni.
Grunt Syndrome is like the biggest plague and disease to the community. Like as Shinra explained, it's this effect where people just submit themselves to debaters that are considered good. I can give you some names of the grunts. So, I respect this person who I'm going to mention. Like, I respect him. I'd say I'm friends with him. His name is Hero to Nerd. Now, Hero to Nerd's actually a pretty cool guy once you get to know him. And he's a pretty decent debater. He's like average or above average, whatever.
Yeah.
But
tepid.
He has this tendency to become a grunt for people who are good or considered good.
Good, yeah.
In mid-2024, this time last year, he became a grunt for Akeno of all people. This is the same Akeno that got his head smashed in, by Shikio.
Yeah.
By Shikio, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'd eat all Mu people" or something.
Yeah, and then he also didn't know what conjunction was.
Following him, and not only was Hero following him, Hero was defending him after this incident. Yeah. And then flash forward a year, Hero has now become a grunt for Infinity and Archie.
Yeah.
So another good example of this effect could be somebody. Well, it's not as strong in this person, to be fair to him, but Flames as well.
No. We aren't going to say it's not as strong. So look. Halt. And
hold on. I'll clarify what I mean real quick. It's not as bad for Flames because he has some unique opinions, right? Yeah. Typically with grunts, they have some kind of convergence in their opinions. They all agree Infinity's top one, and Shinra's really bad, for example.
Yeah.
And Ritan is really bad, for example. But Flames is a bit unique here. Maybe it's the autism that makes him distinct from the others. But he is a really good case of grunt syndrome. Shinra, do you want to explain why?
Yeah. So starting with Hero, when I first met Hero, it was in a server called Shinjuku. He started off actually being a Haram grunt. And, many people don't know this, but when Haram and I had our first debate, he was actually one of the main proponents saying, "Oh my goodness, Haram won, Haram slammed you." Obviously, he doesn't hold that opinion now, but again, times change. And then, he moved on to actually, he was an Archimedes gun first. And I don't know if you remember this, right, but Hero said verbatim, "I just can't imagine a way where Archie loses a debate." Remember him saying that? And he can't imagine.
I remember that screenshot, lol.
Yeah, he's he can't imagine, and every single screenshot he has is just him glazing Infinity or glazing Archie. And when actually pressed on why he thinks Archie is good, Hero wouldn't engage, right? Because I think on a certain level, people who are grunts, they have a dialogue tree, right? And once this dialogue tree expires, they just don't know what to do. So instead of actually further engaging with the discourse, they have a few options. These are the counter options for a grunt. So you can either say that the person who you're arguing with makes no money, right? Which is entirely irrelevant to their Discord debate skill, but you can say they make no money, right? And then you can deflect that way. Or B, you can try and debate going to the best of your ability. And there's also another notorious grunt in the form of Flames. Now you see, Flames changes his opinions every day, because the reason being is because Flames gets his head beat in by everybody, right? So look at, for example, when when he, like, Infinity was initially active, he was like, oh my god, Infinity is the greatest debater alive, oh my god, Infinity was the greatest, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then immediately Infinity left the com, right? He's like, oh yeah, no, Infinity is really bad, he lost to Divinity, right? And that opinion, like, it only arrived immediately Infinity wasn't there to press him. Not to say that his opinion is accurate, right? But like, for you to be a proper grunt, you need to have at least some level of skill, so that, you know, people won't actually question all your opinions or dismiss them like they do to Flames. But Flames, because of his low intelligence, he's unable to actually determine which people are actually good or not, and instead he just does, like, he sticks to the sidelines. If you insult him about his debate skill, he usually say something like, oh yeah, but you lost to X and Y person, ignoring the fact that he would also lose in, you know, tremendous fashion to that same person. Hold on there. Yeah, go ahead.
In fact, with Flames, I've come up with a term specific to Flames, and maybe, you know, this might also help out with diagnosing these other diseases, right?
Yeah.
Flames is what I like to call a victim of perpetual grunt syndrome, where because he's getting beaten by different groups of people on a daily basis, he changes and flip-flops his grunt-like opinions, and then, you know, sucks off different debaters on a different day. Mm-hmm. So one day he might think that C, you know, my little bro C is God's gift to debating, and another day he might be worshipping Infinity just because both of them crush his skull. So, you know, Flames is a victim of perpetual grunt syndrome. But what I want to talk about especially is, you know, grunts that think they're more than grunts, you know, like, you know, your carelesses and your wounds and, like, these kind of...
Your Kuros, like, come
you know,
on.
Maybe your Kuros and your Zennies, maybe even, you know, I'm cool with Kuro and Zenny, I'm cool with them, but it's important to acknowledge, like, you're a grunt as well.
Yeah, like, you're a grunt, you're a sheep, like, you're literally one of those, unlike these people in the background who don't have faces, right? Oh, you know those, like, whenever you're watching, like, or you're reading a manga, and then there's these two bullies, right? Who obviously we know that they have, like, high ups and that, right? But there are always these two bullies who pull up, right? There's the really skinny one, and then there's the really fat one. That's the equivalent.
And then they're the one that's laughing in the background.
Yeah, the fat one's always the one who's laughing in the background, right? And then there's always one which is, like, maybe a little bit muscular, right? That's the equivalent of what most of these grunts are, right? They pull up, they're like first page story villains, right? And they're like, oh my god, yeah, Infinity runs you, Infinity runs your whole life, Archie runs your generation, Archie would kill you and your entire family and slaughter you and gut you, right? And it's like, okay, well, you know, why do you think this? And immediately you ask them why they think any of their opinions, their brain shuts down, they stop replying, and you can see the drool and the spittle dribbling out of your mouth. Like, look at people like Ningen, right? Like, Ningen somehow has also managed to cultivate his own goon force, right? Don't know how he's done that, right? Especially without any recordings. But again, it's like these perpetual grunts. I don't know how they're cultivated. So do you want to talk about how grunts are made?
Yeah, sure. So also, I want to talk about something specific to grunts as well, but I'll get to that after, you know, when I start speaking about the symptoms. So, what causes gruntism, as I'll call it for the rest of this video, is you have these people who are, like, really, really insecure about their own debate skill, or, you know, are really unknowledgeable or don't have enough knowledge on the debate community, and they're not good enough debaters, you know, because Sinra has previously mentioned that in a different video. Being a good debater has some correlation with having good debate opinions, but because they're bad at debating, no offense to you guys, grunts, they tend to have bad debate opinions, uninformed, unintelligent debate opinions, and they are somewhat aware of this, so they confide in a good debater that they think is considered to be good, and they're like, well, this is a safe bet, you know, I'm going to bet on this debater to be a good debater, so my tier lists have an ounce, and my opinions have an ounce of credibility. And that's what causes gruntism. It's the fact that they don't feel like they're credible unless they're sucking the penis and the fucking penis, sorry, of another debater, you know.
Yeah, so again, another way these grunts are born is like through subtle manipulation. So what I mean by this is, you usually, at least this is the Arcano approach, the soft boy, I get beat with bamboo approach. So look, you start off with a discussion, a calm, simple discussion. You begin to slowly introduce gibberish into the conversation. And what I mean by gibberish is, you mention some philosophical concept, some concept that this person doesn't know about, right? And you need to just, what you need is, you need cadence and you need delivery. So you need to describe this gibberish in a way where it doesn't seem like gibberish. So slowly, as you're discussing with them, you're introducing more and more concepts to them, right, that they don't understand. And through introducing these more and more concepts, these people will suddenly become more and more reliant on you, right, as the arbiter and as the person who confirms the information they receive. So, say for example, Infinity, right? Infinity is teaching Careless. He introduces the set of all the contingent things he's got to him, right? He's slowly feeding him in more and more gibberish into his little feeble grunt mind, right? And then his opinions slowly and his beliefs on things slowly start to depend on the grunt owner, little by little. And then, as you begin to learn more, as you begin to venture out into the grunt world, the thing about gibberish is you can change it really quickly. So through changing the sort of gibberish that he's spouting out, he always makes it seem as if he has more to offer. He has more that he knows about. He has infinite depths of knowledge, infinite depths of arguments, right? And upon subtly and sadistically creating this inferiority complex where you feel as if you don't understand anything in comparison to your grant owner, right, the goon leader, right, when you feel like as if you don't understand anything of these concepts, right, then what you need to do is you send the grant out into the world, right, and through sending the grant out into the world, what you're doing is you're setting them up, right, to not only put you in a position of power, right, in comparison to them, but also putting everyone else in the in a position of they're just poor bums, right? So what you do is you tell them, oh my god, yeah, I think you did good in this debate, right? Maybe you don't tell them that they won initially, but you tell them you think they did good in this debate, right? And then slowly but surely you build up their confidence as they continue to debate and say, oh yeah, you beat these people, you beat him, you beat him up, right? While also reinforcing this power dynamic that you and him have with each other, right? And through doing so, you're able to put this person have their perception of the com really low, even though they've consistently been getting their spine shattered by every person they argue with, right? They'll never know because the person who they rely on for all their information, and they're the one who's feeding them this information. So it's like a baby who hasn't been weaned. They'll never learn to have their own opinions unless somebody forces them. And the thing I want to talk about specifically is their hard counter. Now, so you see, a hard counter for every grunt is a debate goon, right? And a debate goon is somebody who's dedicated their life's work, right, to analyzing debaters, right, and arguing over who's a better debater, arguing over debate standards, arguing about everything except for an actual proper topic, right? And these debate goons, they counter the grunts because the grunts are able to actually prevaricate, obfuscate, and prolificate, right, away from the actual topic because they're constantly being pressed and because they're constantly being harassed by the debate goons. But you can take it from here, Yani.
One more thing I'd like to add, or one thing I'd like to add is the fact that there's some overlap between gruntism and like real life examples of cultism, when someone's a part of a cult or a religion, right? So if I were to insult a Muslim, not in virtue of his faith, right? Like I'm not insulting a Muslim in virtue of his own characteristics. If I were to insult a Muslim based on his faith and say, oh yeah, the Quran is false, something like that, and say like, oh, I hate the Quran, right? They're gonna take it personally because, and you ask them why. You ask them why, and they're like, because I'm Muslim. So being Muslim as a part of their identity makes them feel offended to claims and remarks against Islam. And the same thing can be applied to these kinds of people. You insult Infinity. What the fuck? What's wrong with you, man? Let's go band for band, man. You suck, man. Let's debate, man. You suck, nigga. Like, they want to debate you. They get angry at you for insulting another man. It's like there's this strange overlap between people who get offended by religious remarks or remarks against religion and people who get offended by remarks against Discord debaters. It's like the most insane thing ever to me. If someone says Shinra's ass, I'm going to sit here and say, yeah, Shinra's ass, lol. Yeah, I'm going to make jokes about it maybe or whatever. Maybe have a cordial conversation about it. If someone says Infinity's ass to Careless, right? He's gonna lose his mind. He's gonna go crazy. He's gonna go apeshit on you. He's gonna, he's gonna like monkey out on you. He's gonna chimp out on you. Right, and it's like really insane. It's like they worship these debaters. It's like they're the essence of a grunt, huge grunts.
Yeah. So again, it's like these people, because their self-worth is tied to these other debaters, they feel as if they've become part of something important because of the fact that they are grunts for these other debaters. Any attack onto all of these other debaters is an attack on them personally, right? They think that, okay, if I've invested so much time being a grunt for this specific person and then somebody is insulting them, how dare you? How dare you? You scoundrel, right? You insulted my infinity, Boober. How dare you, right? And through doing so, they reach their final chrysalis, right? And they become debate goons, right? And through becoming debate goons, right? The only topic they will ever debate really is whether or not you're better than infinity, right? I've seen people sit there, stand 10 toes down, and say, "Yeah, what's my best topic? Oh yeah, my best topic is defending that infinity and how can I have the best debaters." It's like, really, mate. Really, and it's like, these people, you can either a slowly try to wean them off it through like showing that these people, they don't actually debate gods, they're actually real people. Like these people were born the same way you were born, they'll die probably in the same way you will die, right? Like these people are real people, and it's like, no, infinity is mine, right? Okay, it's mine. I think this sense of unity, this sense of community that being a grunt to another man gives them, right, is what actually drives is the driving force behind like goon psychology. Now look at Flames, for example. Nobody really cares about Flames unless you're insulting him or like saying that Flames is a bad debater. Nobody actually like, or am I like mistaken? Nobody wants to hear what Flames has to say about the matter, right? We want to debate the guy.
I'm mistaken, as a huge Flames fan, I watch all of his debates.
Yeah, man.
He's defending the person that he decides to dick suck. And my name is no one. I'm not even a person. I don't even exist, right? So like, there's actually no one out there who is caring about Flames' opinions. We could literally all care less. Like,
get it? Care like. But not only that, like ignoring the fact that there's some guy on Discord called Careless, and he's trying to convince us that somebody named Care isn't him. Like, come on now, bro. We all know that we know. But again, aside from that, it's like nobody really wants to listen to Flames. So being able to defend Infinity, or being able to be a grunt to say somebody like Archie, somebody, right, like, it makes him feel heard, right? Because people, obviously, they're going to give him pushback. Say like an Infinity Grunt and a Yugi Grunt, right? Say they lock eyes on each other. They start arguing, right? Being able to rep the person who they've revered as a god, right? Being able to do that, it makes them feel heard. It makes them feel like, okay, well, my prayers will be answered, right? To be hit tier 2. If I keep defending him, then he'll put me tier 2 on his list. And it's like, well, you're being used, right? You're being used and abused. So it's like, because nobody really cares what Flames has to say, he like really deeper. He's not funny, right? He's usually not funny, I should say. He's not good at debating. He's not smart. So what does he do?
Wait, let's not turn this into like the 50th Flame hate burner video.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but like,
Flames is an example, guys. Flames is only
Flames is the example, but like, look, I think Flames and his state, the way he exists, is a perfect example for all of the other grunts. Because really deeper, right? Do you really care what Kura has to say about anything? No. Do you really care what Careless has to say about Crossverse? No.
No.
Do you really care what judgment Zenny has to give on a Quinton C versus Careless debate? No. Do you care what Brayley has to say? No. Right. No. However, the times they're actually getting engaged with is whenever they're talking about their papa, right, Infinity, right, because they're just small bebes, right, who are able to actually form opinions of their own, for one, right, and two.
One more thing as well. Yeah. Sorry to get off there. Is that because they're literal babies, right? Like unironic babies. Their fathers actually have to pipe up and defend them, and this is called the Infinity Gruntism effect, right? So whenever an Infinity Grunt is debating, and they're losing, and again they're head smashing by typically Rizhan. Actually, it's like typically Rizhan who's doing the dirty work in some of these grunts. Who joins VC, Shinra?
Infinity, and now you see Infinity or Archie. Right, like those two pulling up, it takes away from the fact that these people are actually getting their head beaten quite brutally, right? And it makes them focus on Infinity, right? That's like,
and then like this is the saddest part of the Gruntism effect. It leads to good debaters, being underrated and undervalued in virtue of these grunts having beef with them. So, for example, some retards like Careless, who are grunts, get their ego fed to them by the grunt masters, Infinity, the slave masters, the partners, the fathers, right? Yeah. And they feed their egos. So whenever they debate someone who's a non-grunt and a non-part of their.
Yeah, so there's a brief intermission. I need to go get some groceries, but Yani, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I was saying before, like the interruption, the saddest part of gruntism is that you have really good or pretty good debaters have their reputations ruined and dragged through the mud in virtue of like the grunts just jumping them. So a good example of this is my good friend Rizhan. You know, Rizhan is someone who actively combats these grunts. He goes out there,
Yeah.
he goes into the battlefield, the rhetorical, argumentative battlefield, and takes out his like rhetorical pistol and shoots him in the head. But then there's zombies. You know, these grunts are zombies, and they come back every time to bite him in the form of ranking him really low on their tier lists. And because their fathers, you know, infinities and arches, etc., love to, you know, give them ego and give them hype. They think they're justified in their opinions. And typically, you know, these grunts, since the person that, you know, actively fighting against them also hates their grunt masters, you know, like their slave masters, that person also hates their grunt masters. The grunt masters also order the grunts against them, which is what we see when Infinity debates people like Careless, etc., and uses judgment. Another great debater, another good debater who has his reputation ruined absolutely through and through is C. Now, C, you know, we all know through the law is at the bare minimum like a relative to Shinra. So we have this like Shinra rival, but Shinra has much better reputation than C, just in virtue of the fact that C gets his teeth kicked in terms of reputation and consensus, because the people he's debating tend to bias judgments against him, or, you know, just are just biased against him as a whole, and in virtue of that he loses things like polls, and he looks really bad optically every single time he engages with these grunts. Another example, this example isn't as good, but Apollo, through a large time in the community, was known as a shitter, but Apollo's like, you know, pretty good at debating, he's pretty decent.
Yeah.
So he had to lean into gruntism. He had to get his own grunts. And he realized, and now we see the TKA syndicate. So the TKA syndicate isn't something that's good for the community. I think Shinra can agree with that.
Yeah.
It's not good for people that blindly follow you. But because of gruntism, he had to resort to that to get consensus, and it's really, really sad.
Well,
You know,
I don't
gruntism
think
is
specifically, if we want to diagnose Apollo's gruntism, right, and why he has these grunts, I don't think specifically the reason why he has, or the reason why his grunts are bad, or specifically the reason why grunts are bad is because they think you're good debater, they think you're the best. I think the reason why is because they have these subconscious biases, right? So even if, yes, he can defend why Apollo won the debate. Yes, he can defend why Infinity won the debate. The reasoning he's giving is always going to not represent what his true unbiased opinion, because he has these unconscious biases which are influencing his argument. So, say I was having a discussion with somebody called Punish on whether or not on Akuno's debate with Shikia, right? Even though I don't remember their debate in its entirety, right? I remember vague bits of it, right? And you know, it was at a point where Okuno said something like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, I just don't know," or he misdefined the conjunction, and then like Punish was like, "Okay, yeah, no, look, he obviously didn't mean that, right? Because how could somebody who's really good, how could somebody who's tier 2 or tier 1 actually mean that?" It's like, yeah, look, like what's we're currently questioning is whether or not he's actually tier 1, right? And like because he's formed this unconscious bias, this unconscious disposition into thinking that Okuno is actually tier 1, every opinion or every judgment he's giving of Akuno's debate, whether I be trying to determine his meaning whenever he says certain words, or whether it be actually him ranking Okuno, they're always going to be based off of the fact that any of his MT performances, any of his blunders, they can simply just be excused by the fact that he's good. So clearly what he said there isn't what he meant, right? But obviously for the people who aren't convinced he's good, that just doesn't justify why he's good at all, right? So yeah, these unconscious biases, they're ruining debating, right? What's it called? I think in general, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing to have, like, say, a syndicate, right? Like a syndicate, or just like a group of people, like 6-7 people who like all think each other are good. Shut up, man. Or who all think each other are good, right? And then they discuss their lab, right? They put each other high on tier list because obviously it's representative of their real opinion, right? Like then, but what is unhealthy though is people who sit there who, you know, one, aren't even good themselves, right? And two, are just idiots. Like the people who they're grunting for don't grunt for them back. back like as hard as they do. You'll never see like Infinity putting, say, Kura in tier 3, right, or in tier 2, even though Infinity thinks she's a tier 0, right, because Infinity simply just doesn't think they're as good as they think he is good, right? Like, and you could say, oh yeah, no, that's Infinity being unbiased. So it's like, no, right? If Infinity, with all the biases that he has, can only get you to tier 4 on his tier list, that says a lot about you, right? Like, that says you're a bad debater. That says you're a terrible interlocutor. That says you can't handle it in the intellectual battlefield, right? And that is the reason why grunts are terrible, right? And we need to fix this stigma. We need to fix this stigma of people are allowed to actually get away with being high on tier lists without actually, like, people listening to the words that are coming out of their mouth. Like, look, okay, how did Infinity suddenly build a reputation back for himself after he said the Serval contingent thinks he's gone, right? Like, he's now a pagan, right? Like, he thinks everything is gone, right? But he's managed to slowly but surely cultivate his reputation back, right, through being able to spit gibberish for large amounts of time and have somebody like Archimedes judges to be like, who in the world in the right mind would let Archimedes give them judgment on any of their debates, right? Like, come on now. But yeah, I think that's it for me. I think I've said all I need to say. You like the video, like, subscribe. Yani, do you have anything else to say, man?
To conclude, sorry, I'm just in the video, bro.
Mate, say it.
I mean, I wasn't thinking of anything in specific, but you can actually help gruntism. Come on, you can help the preventation of gruntism, right? And a good way to prevent this from happening is to do the complete flippant opposite of what they do. Because to facilitate gruntism, people like Infinity have to spread the most insane opinions. They have to spread things like, oh yeah, Flames is a better debater than Yani, or Zenny is a better debater than Yani, or Careless is a better debater than Yani.
Oh, Careless beat Jester.
Careless beat Jester, guys, somehow, some way. That's not possible.
Yeah.
So to combat this retardation, what you have to do is, watch these debaters and then come up with honest, evaluated, and justified opinions. And, talk to people who are not biased. Talk to people, who have a tendency to be clear. Talk to people like Shinra, who, even if you disagree with him, at the end of the day, it's going to be a fruitful conversation. Talk to me, talk to C, talk to any of those kinds of people.
Don't talk to
and then,
Sakazuki,
not even that, not Sakazuki, but like talk to these kinds of people and, try to evaluate your debate opinions in that way. So, to conclude, help the prevention of gruntism, stop gruntism, and end the grunt syndrome that a lot of you guys have.
Make debating great again, as some would say. If you like the video, like and subscribe. This has been Shinra, that was Yani, and Sakazuki's in the VC for some odd reason. And wow.